right, we'll finish up with the fats lecture review, talking a little bit about the digestion of fats and oils. The mouth has very little to do with the digestion of fats. There are a few lipase enzymes, but most of those are in the small intestine. This area of the liver is really important because the liver manufactures something called bile. And bile is actually stored in the gallbladder, which is this little piece right here, and is then secreted into the small intestine. And what bile does is it emulsifies fats. And the thing I like to explain about this is when you buy salad dressing that is separated with the oil and the vinegar, you shake it up before you put it on your salad. That shaking is like emulsification. You're breaking each of those fat molecules into smaller amounts so that they can disperse for a short time with the vinegar. Well, bile does the same thing so that we can get that fat into our small intestine and start to break that down. Then the pancreas makes something called lipase. Remember, ACE means enzyme. And that lipase is secreted into the small intestine, and the small intestine is that primary site for the digestion and absorption of lipids. Long chain fatty acids, so the really big one, they actually have to be packaged and transported through the lymphatic system. And then the shorter chain fatty acids can go directly back to the liver and be secreted into the circulation and dispersed throughout the fat. Now, we typically are very good at absorbing fat, so very little fat ends up in the large intestine, and very little fat is excreted into the feces. So we'll skip through some of these. So the small intestine is that primary site of fat digestion. This hormone cholecystokinin is kind of an interesting hormone because when pancreatic lipase is released, this hormone is stimulated. And this is one of the hormones that gives our body that feeling of satiety. It triggers the hypothalamus to tell us, okay, I think we might be full. And the benefit of that is that eating a little bit of fat can increase your satiety so you don't constantly feel hungry. We talked about the bile acids and the fat. So again, most dietary fat is absorbed. Short and medium chain fatty acids go right through the bloodstream and into the liver, but the long chain fatty acids have to be reformed into triglyceride and enter the lymphatic system. So again, fatty acids eventually are reformed into these triglycerides. Triglycerides are the way we eat fat, and then we break them down into fatty acids, and then when we need to store fat, we build it back to triglycerides. To get it through the blood, we use a much smaller packaging concept called a chylomicron. There's a picture in your book of that. And again, this lipase, that's the enzyme that breaks the triglycerides into these little tiny packages. And those packages are taken to the liver. Now from the liver, I think this is my picture here. From the liver, we can decide if we're going to use that fat as energy or store that fat. Now, one of the things when we store that fat is we decide how we want that fat carried in the blood. And we package it into a couple of different things. We can package it into an HDL. And typically, if we eat diets that are high in plant fats, we will package more of our fat into this HDL. And then the benefit of that high HDL is that HDL acts as like kind of little Pac-Man and removes bad cholesterol from the bloodstream. And it may block the cellular oxidation of LDL, which can lead to heart disease. So how do I raise that? Moderate alcohol intake, which means 2 drinks a day for a man, 1 drink a day for a woman. Exercise. And then the other key piece is avoiding trans fats. Now, the low-density lipoproteins are the fats that get packaged when you eat a lot of saturated fats. Okay. One of the B vitamins, niacin, in the high doses as nicotinic acid can actually help lower LDL levels. And a low saturated fat and low trans fat diet can lower it. So eat less saturated fat, eat less trans fats. So this is animal fats, and this is processed foods. So eat less animal fats and less processed foods. We talked about the 2 essential fatty acids, the omega-3 fatty acid. Remember 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you count from the double omega right there. And then this is where it's found. This is how much we need each day. And where do we get it? What foods? salmon, sardines. And look at that, one 4-ounce salmon gives you your whole entire day's worth, so it's plenty. Tuna has a little bit, sardines are much better. Cod, not swordfish. Swordfish is actually quite high in mercury, though it's not one you really want to eat a lot of. Some other foods, so almonds actually don't, but walnuts are quite high. Okay, flax seeds are quite high, pecans, pistachios. A note about flax seeds, it's really important if you're going to eat flax seeds as your omega-3 fat that you eat the flaxseed meal, because the actual flax seeds have the oil inside, but our body actually can't break that whole down. Okay. Walnut oil, so if on your salads, if you want to use walnut oil, you're going to get more omega-3 fatty acids. Soybean oil, flaxseed oil, there's your high amount. 1 tablespoon of flaxseed oil pretty much gives you all the omega-3s you need for the week. Okay, canola oil is pretty decent too. Cod liver oil. Sardine oil, haven't used that though. And then the omega-6 fatty acids are found in vegetable oils, and we only need a little bit a day. The thing I want to make a note about here is these 2 components, this DHA and this EPA. These are the 2 really healthy components of omega-3 fatty acid, alpha-linoleic acid. And we notice here that when we eat omega-6 fatty acids, we don't get that DPA and EPA and DHA. These are the 2 things that reduce the inflammation in our body and make omega-3 so healthy. Okay, so again, the benefits of omega-3s is decreasing blood clotting, reducing heart attacks, decreasing inflammation. So that's a real good thing. Okay, so why do we eat fats? Well, they're a very concentrated form of energy. They give us insulation, protection. They help transport our fat-soluble vitamins, and they help release that hormone cholecystokinin that provides some satiety for us. How much should we have? Well, American Heart Association recommends a pretty low amount. Average intake's about 33% of our calories. Some of the really good studies have shown that you can get up to 35% of your calories from fat as long as you're avoiding saturated and trans fats. So let's just look lastly at some cardiovascular disease or heart disease risk factors. If you have a high blood cholesterol, if you smoke, if you have a high blood pressure, if you have diabetes, if you have a low high density lipoprotein. Remember, that's the one you want to be high. As you age, you have an increased risk factor, if you have family history, and if you have high amounts of fat floating in your blood. Obesity, especially this fat around the waist, we call this waist circumference. We're going to learn more about that. The waist circumference leads to this insulin resistance. That's why weight loss is so important in type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome. And if people are inactive. Okay, I think we've talked about lowering the LDL, how you lower the blood triglycerides. And it's interesting, blood triglycerides actually have more to do with how much alcohol and sugar that you eat. So if you overindulge in those, you can actually increase that triglycerides. I'm going to skip through these. How do we raise the HDL? Activity, don't smoke, eat regular meals, eat less fat, especially trans fats. All right, I will get this up for you guys and hope you have a good week.